Now, for us to understand exactly the benefits of SwiftUI, I think it's important for us to look at the progression of the Apple ecosystem, if you will, for developers. So it used to be that in order for you to create any application for the Apple ecosystem, you would have to learn Objective-C. That was it. You had no other option. You had to learn Objective-C in order to create any sort of application for the Apple platform or ecosystem. Now, Objective-C wasn't a very easy language to learn and or to read. In fact, it was one of the toughest languages I've ever had to learn. And a lot of other people also shared the same sentiment. So it wasn't just me. Objective-C was really hard. So Apple decided later, about 20 years or so later, that okay, it's time to come back to the 21st century and create something a little bit more easier to handle. So then they created Swift language. That was a revolutionary feat, if you will, because Swift was a better language, very simplified and easy to learn. So developers could just learn in a whim. All was good. Now, the thing that you have to realize also, in order for us to build anything for the Apple ecosystem, you would have to, of course, put together some sort of user interface. And traditionally, creating user interfaces is really, really hard, even though we have Swift language. The reason why is because the way we create user interfaces in the Apple realm is that we use Xcode IDE. So the Xcode is the IDE, integrated development environment used to create applications for Apple ecosystem. So you would open up Xcode. In order for you to create a user interfaces, you'd have to use Storyboard and or UI Kit, okay, so libraries, to create whatever you wanted to create for our user interface. Now, the Storyboard is just a clunky, cumbersome tool that all developers were stuck for many, many years in order to create anything usable for any iOS application and as well for any Mac OS and so forth. So just to give you an example, this is a very simple application. As you can see here, this is what we call Xcode. It's just a picture of Xcode. And this simple application here only takes about 4 items or 4 controllers there. Okay, so this simple application, you can see to the left, we have view controller scene on that panel there. And inside we have top layout guide, and we have views and have a stack view. And then we have the mill label. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, you can see there's a lot of layers. All of these things you have to drag and drop and search for them. An image view you put on top of that, and then you put a text field. And I mean, it's a lot of work. And on top of that, you would also have to then connect to the code in order for the responsiveness to happen. So when they click on the UI image view, for instance, if you want the app to do something, then you'd have to make sure you connect the code and the storyboard items you've added into user interface. So that is, of course, a pain to say the least. All of that goes away with SwiftUI, because now with SwiftUI, Apple decided to create this framework that is exceptionally amazing, because now you can create all sort of applications for the Apple platform using code only, but not just any kind of code. This code is declarative syntax, right? Meaning it's easy to read and it's also natural to write. So it's almost like you are writing in English language, because you're declaring things you want to see in your application. An example here, you can see that piece of code to the left there generates what you see to the right. Now, before SwiftUI, in order to create table view, as they called those lists there, you would have to do a lot of work between the storyboard and using UIKit views and using UIKit APIs and all sort of things you have to do in order to get this to work. But in this case here with SwiftUI, you can see less than 30 lines of code. If that, actually, I would say probably 15 lines of code or less, you're able to put together something simple as that. And the beauty also you have to notice here is that looking at this code closely is that you can actually read, even if you've never looked at Swift code or SwiftUI before, it's easy to read, it's intuitive. You can see, for instance, there's a variable body there, which is just a view, which returns a list, which inside of this list we have an image, right? And we have a view stack or vertical stack, which contains 2 texts. and then we make the last text there to have a color gray. It makes a lot of sense. So this is why SwiftUI shines. It just takes away all of that cumbersome code as well as storyboard, the old way of creating user interfaces, and makes it more declarative and easy to understand, easy to write, and to the point.